Hello everyone, and welcome back to Whispers of Turkish Stars. If emotional stories about your favorite Turkish celebrities make your heart stop for a second, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the channel to keep this community growing. Today we're sharing a story that has quietly tugged at millions of hearts. It's about a silence that shielded a wound, and about a love that wasn't allowed to finish its sentence. It's Alina Baz's quiet ache and the confession she carried for far too long about Alp Navruz. For years, Alina moved with a careful grace, keeping her private world tucked behind a steady smile and a soft refusal to explain. Silence became her armor. It kept strangers from touching memories that still felt raw. It kept certain moments preserved in a small, safe place where no one could judge them or demand closure before she was ready. But then she sat down for an interview, and the armor finally slipped. Her voice trembled. Her eyes warmed with old light. And she allowed a truth to come out that no headline could soften. She didn't scream it. She didn't deliver it with theatrics. She just breathed it into the room. All she had wanted was to marry him. If he hadn't walked away, they would still be them, two people building something simple and real, without spectacle. That confession changed the air around her. It turned her from an image in a frame into a person we could all recognize, the kind of person who still hears one particular laugh in empty rooms, who still knows exactly how a hand felt when it fit into hers. For months, Alina avoided speaking about Alp, avoided any question that pulled their names into the same sentence. She softened conversations with polite answers and gentle jokes, and then she moved on. But underneath that composure, the truth was burning quietly. Those closest to her saw what the outside world could not. They saw the silent grief that followed the breakup like a shadow. No scandal. No dramatic fighting. Just a long, persistent ache that did not ask permission before it arrived each morning. A close friend whispered that the wedding had once been more than a dreamy thought. It had form. It had shape. It had a dress chosen and a venue circled on the calendar. There was a song. One that might have filled the air while they danced, barefoot and laughing, as a soft sea breeze tried to memorize their joy. But he left, and with him went the piece of her heart that had been rehearsing those steps. During the interview, Alina spoke about those days with a strange blend of sorrow and acceptance. She described an imagined ceremony by the water, the sun reflecting off the waves like 1,000 tiny promises. She could picture the smile she hoped to see curve over Alp's face when he first laid eyes on her, the way the world might narrow until it was just them, for one astonishing moment without cameras or expectations. And then, in a sentence that made the room feel colder, she shared the day everything changed. He was simply gone. Not a dramatic farewell. Not closure dressed up as wisdom. Just absence. No goodbye, no map back to what they had been. The future they had traced together disappeared with him, like a footprint washed clean by the tide. Her words revealed a human tenderness that fame cannot cancel. Behind the curated images and the practiced public poise, there was someone who had loved deeply, and who could not pretend that the memories didn't still tug. You could hear in her voice the slow work of healing, steady, imperfect, and real. The kind of healing that doesn't erase anything, but teaches you how to carry it. Months passed. The noise faded. And then, just when the quiet had finally started to feel survivable, he reappeared. Alp returned with a grand proposal, the sort of moment designed to stop time and make the world watch. Alina admitted in that same interview that she stood inside a storm she could not name. One part of her lunged toward him, toward what they once were, toward the warmth that used to be enough. Another part of her stood perfectly still, holding the line, insisting that the hourglass had emptied and that some doors cannot be reopened just because a heart remembers the key. She wasn't cruel. She didn't point her finger. She told her truth with the kind of empathy that comes from having loved someone more than she loved her defenses. She said she couldn't blame him entirely, maybe he did what he believed was best when he stepped away. But she also said she was allowed to speak for herself. At last, if he hadn't left, she would still be with him now. And even if she tried to deny it, the clearest desire she'd housed all along was simple: she had wanted to be his wife. When that interview aired, social media surged as if struck by a wave. Fans filled timelines with messages of support, not just for a star, but for a young woman who had finally let her heart speak in its own language. People wrote that her confession felt like their own, like a mirror held up for anyone who has loved someone who walked away without looking back. And something else happened, a new light fell across her work. Viewers returned to her performances, especially her turns in Ask 101 and Marasli, and said they could sense nuances they hadn't seen before, as if real life had quietly woven itself into the spaces between her lines. It wasn't that she had used her pain to perform. It was that she knew how to tell the truth on screen because she had survived it off screen. Through it all, Alina left a small candle burning. Real love, she suggested, doesn't evaporate. It learns to wait. It tucks itself away in a room without clocks, hoping without demanding. And yet, in the same breath, she admitted she wasn't sure she wanted that love to come back. The mind and the heart belong to different kingdoms. Memory and dignity don't always hold hands. She had learned how to stand on her own feet, and she wasn't willing to fall just because a familiar voice called her name. As for Alp, he chose public silence. There were no big statements, no defensive interviews, no attempts to rewrite history with better lighting. But sources close to him whispered that he had reached out, carefully, tentatively, almost reverently. He understood, they said, that words had run out of power. Sentences can't rebuild trust alone. Actions matter. Time matters. Showing up matters in a language that doesn't require grand gestures, only consistent ones. And so their story slipped into a different category. It was no longer just a celebrity romance tracked by cameras and hashtags. It became a lesson about timing, about vulnerability, about the merciless math of missed chances. Even the strongest love can turn fragile when silence sits between two people for too long. Perhaps the saddest thing in love is to be ready finally, completely ready. At the exact moment the other person has already decided to go. That was the line that closed the interview, but not the narrative. Because stories like this don't obey cutoffs. They linger in the doorway. They refill themselves with questions. Alina's story keeps swinging back and forth between a past that still stings and a future that refuses to clarify itself. Maybe there's a clean page waiting for them somewhere down the road. Maybe the echo of what might have been is all that will remain, warm and haunting, a song that fades before the last note lands. What do you think? Is there a real chance for Alina and Alp to begin again, to rebuild something that doesn't pretend the past didn't happen but honors it in the way they choose to move forward? Or are some wounds so deep that reopening the door would only invite the rain back in? Tell us your thoughts in the comments, and let us know which Turkish stars you want us to explore next. Before you go, remember to like, subscribe, and join Whispers of Turkish Stars so you never miss a new chapter. Thank you for watching, for listening with tenderness, and for giving space to stories that don't come wrapped in easy answers. We'll see you in the next video, where the spotlight will once again uncover the heartbeat behind the headlines. And as we leave this one, hold on to the image that refused to abandon Alina, the shoreline, the slow music, the smile she imagined would rise on his face. Hold on to the simple understanding that love, when it's honest, doesn't always end with a curtain call. Sometimes it ends with a quiet room and a softer voice, with two people learning the cost of silence. Sometimes it doesn't end at all. Sometimes it waits, steady as a tide, deciding whether to return with a gentler moon or to dissolve into memory, leaving the sand smooth and undisturbed except for the trace of two names, once written side by side, shimmering before the waves come in. And if the waves do come in, remember this, the sea never forgets. It just keeps breathing in and out, like a heart that refuses to stop. Somewhere in that rhythm, there is patience. Somewhere in that rhythm, there is a second chance preparing itself without promises. And somewhere, always, there is a story that hasn't told its ending yet, two silhouettes at the edge of the water, listening for the sound of each other's footsteps, deciding whether the next step is back together, or forward alone. Until then, this is Whispers of Turkish Stars, holding space for Alina's bravery and Alp's quiet. If love finds them again, may it arrive without noise, without rush, without fear. And if it doesn't, may it leave them wiser, kinder, and certain that what they had was real. Because sometimes that certainty is the only closure anyone ever truly gets. We're signing off, but their story, like the tide, keeps moving. Good night, and see you soon.